Welcome to Podkey NFL, where today it's fourth downs, quarterback battles, and camp pressure points. A lot of this season's storylines come down to the same question in different forms. What are teams willing to commit to? Go for it on fourth down, hand a job to a young quarterback, pay for the right scheme fit, or trust a risky comeback. The league keeps telling us what it believes. One of the clearest league-wide shifts still traces back to that 2017 Eagles title run, when the fourth down decisions were bold enough to feel like a cultural event. The numbers followed. There were 485 fourth down attempts in 2017, 539 in 2018, and by 2020, the league had added roughly another 100 attempts. Then the 2019 Ravens gave everybody the proof of concept. They were worth plus 9.3 EPA on fourth downs, while the league average sat at minus 6.6, and that kind of gap gets coaches' attention fast. By 2025, about 5 or 6 teams are going for conversions on more than 30% of eligible fourth downs. From 2011 through 2017, the norm was more like 11 to 13%. That same stretch also pushed offenses harder into 11 personnel. Usage jumped after 2017 and 2018. With about a 4.5-point spike in 2018 as spread and RPO ideas kept spreading. What matters is that 11 personnel doesn't have to mean light football. The Rams, Bears, and Bills showed you can still run heavy from it if your receivers block and your line can create angles. If you don't have that, it gets messy. Teams without an inline tight end, or with slot receivers who just aren't helping in the run game, can copy the formation but not the physical result. The Rams sit near the center of a bunch of conversations right now, starting with Aaron Donald and whether a comeback is brilliant or unnecessary. The case against it is simple. He's already an 8-time first-team All-Pro, and coming back after a 3-year layoff risks putting a little wear on a legacy that doesn't need anything else. The case for it is also pretty easy to see. He's still known for elite training. The Rams have enough front seven depth to manage his snaps, and a limited situational role could still matter in a playoff push. It's the familiar late career debate we get with stars. People want the clean ending, but they also know great players can still tilt a game, even if the role changes. The Rams also came out on top in a roster health ranking that only counted players still on original rookie deals. That's a very specific rule, and it changes a lot. If a team extends a young star, that player can stop helping the score, which creates a weird little paradox where good team building can lower your health ranking. Even with that quirk, the Rams still landed first, because their 2023 and 2024 drafts gave them a lot of healthy, cost-controlled depth. That helps explain why some early power rankings are so bullish on them, especially after major additions, like Myles Garrett, and with Donald comeback talk hanging in the air. If not the Rams, the Seahawks were the close alternative in some of those debates. Quarterback rooms are still giving us plenty to watch, and a few of these aren't really settled, even if somebody opens week 1. The Raiders situation stands out, with Kirk Cousins against Fernando Mendoza. The expectation there is that Mendoza could see meaningful snaps around week 8 and maybe fully break through by week 13. Atlanta has Tua Tagovailoa and Michael Penix, which makes health a huge part of the conversation before you even get to style or upside. Minnesota's mix of Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy has the same basic tension, proven experience versus the pull of the younger long-term answer. In Denver, Bonix is expected back as the Week 1 starter under Davis Webb, and with the Broncos there's also real optimism that adding Jalen Waddle could lift the offense enough if the defense stays where it needs to be. Cleveland is a stranger kind of equation. The Browns' defense gets talked about as maybe the league's best, but the Deshaun Watson versus Shedeur Sanders question still hangs over the whole projection. A smaller but interesting note in all of this is how QB Island gets used as a casting and development tool, and how much teams are searching for edges in the evaluation process. And one analytics nugget worth keeping in your pocket. C.J. Stroud posted an elite .43 EPA per dropback on drives right after an interception. That's a pretty clean marker for poise. Some of the most immediate camp stress is happening at tackle, where the problem is less theory and more survival. Carolina came into camp with both starting tackles unavailable. Taylor Moton is sidelined by a blood clot. Isaiah Adams is dealing with legal issues, and now rookie Monroe Freeling is being pushed into real duty fast. That's a rough environment for Bryce Young, because tackle instability has a way of turning every offensive discussion into a protection discussion. There are major left tackle battles elsewhere too. Dallas has Tyler Guyton versus Nate Thomas, Chicago has Braxton Jones versus Jedrick Wills, and Carolina has Rasheed Walker versus Freeling. Those aren't just depth chart puzzles. They affect quarterback comfort, roster building, and money, because teams are always weighing the safer veteran against the much cheaper young option. A lot of personnel moves make more sense once you view them through scheme. Tyler Linderbaum going to San Francisco fits that perfectly. For a Shanahan-style system, center play is about timing, angles, and making the wide zone machine run smoothly. So it echoes earlier investments like Alex Mack and Weston Richburg. Other moves land the same way. Mike Evans gives the 49ers a real vertical threat. Marvin Harrison Jr. is set up to benefit from more motion and spread ideas under Michael LaFleur. Logan Hall could get more interior rush work in Houston, and Ashawn Robinson was added to toughen up Tampa Bay's run defense inside. Defensively, the overhaul theme is everywhere. Jesse Minter is expected to give Baltimore a major lift. Rob Leonard's Raiders won a four-man rush with simulated pressure, and Rob O'Leary brings an aggressive blitz background to the Chargers. The caution is obvious. It's one thing to draw up pressure packages and hybrid looks, and another thing to execute them in the NFL every week with different personnel realities than college or smaller programs. Two AFC teams getting very different kinds of skepticism are Kansas City and the Chargers. For the Chiefs, the concern is that the record may have outpaced the underlying profile. A Pythagorean projection put them around 9.5 wins, roughly 3 games shy of where their point differential suggested they'd normally land. Some of that comes back to luck, especially special teams field goal variance that probably won't repeat. Some of it comes back to roster shape. They don't have many true isolated deep threats. The blocking tight end piece is thin, and the run game leans heavily on quarterback design runs. Take those QB runs away, and the rushing success rate falls from top 10 territory to around 29th. The Chargers' issue is different. They were hyped, but still finished 26th in EPA per play, and 23rd in both passing and rushing EPA. With Justin Herbert, timing really matters. When his release gets past about 2.5 seconds, his success rate drops from top 10 level into bottom 10 territory, which tells you this offense needs better protection and quicker rhythm answers. A few contract decisions are drawing very different reviews. Jordan Brooks at 3 years and $51 million, with $35 million guaranteed, was seen as a relative bargain compared with the market around him. Devonte Wyatt at 3 years and $57 million feels more like a bet on talent consistency finally arriving. Then there are targeted signings that are less about star power and more about usage. Like Jalen Thompson going to Dallas with the expectation he can move between free safety, slot, and box responsibilities. That flexibility matters because bad guarantees and bad timing can clog up a cap sheet for years, even when the player himself is useful. The draft conversation around cornerbacks carries that same uncertainty. Top corners often come from the first round, but the hit rate is still shakier than people would like, even with all the SEC and Big Ten scouting volume. There are obvious wins, but the position stays volatile because penalties, target volume, and role can distort evaluation in a hurry. Offensive tackle and interior line can sometimes project more cleanly. And then there's the odd but interesting idea of replacing the Pro Bowl setup with a third-place game between the conference title losers. The argument for it is easy to understand. You'd probably get a better actual football product than the current skill challenge version, and fans would at least have a game with real line of scrimmage stakes. The pushback is just as strong. It's another injury risk. It could cheapen the end of a season that already hurts, and without a real reward like draft incentives, it's hard to see players embracing it. That's the roundup for today. Thanks for spending a little time with Podkey NFL, and we'll catch you next time. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.